So the other day I was partaking in one of my favorite pastimes, which is looking on Google Maps for potential waves, and I found a few interesting setups. The only issue with one of them was that it was in the Hermit Kingdom. Now, North Korea is one of the most fascinating places on the planet. It's a place that's shrouded in secrecy and mystery, and it's a country of almost 26 million people that we basically don't know much about. It's one of the few countries in the world that you can't actually visit, and any information coming from the country is strictly controlled by the government. So before we look at the potential waves in North Korea and whether or not you could actually surf there, let's take a little dive into the history. So in the 1900s, the Korean Empire was annexed by Japan, and in 1910 it became a Japanese colony. Then throughout World War II, the Korean Peninsula remained under Japanese occupation, but when the war ended in 1945 and the Japanese pulled out of the Korean Peninsula, the northern half of the peninsula was occupied by the Soviets and the southern half by the US. Then between 1950 and 1953, the Korean War took place. Now, the war was violent and both the North and South pushed each other back and basically kept pushing each other back and forth for a few years until eventually they ended up back where they started, at a line known as the 38th parallel. Now, on the 27th of July 1953, an armistice was agreed and the now famous demilitarized zone was set up along the 38th parallel. So from then on, the Korean Peninsula was divided. You had the North Koreans in the northern half and the South Koreans in the southern half. The North Koreans still had a lot of Soviet input and started to follow along with their ideology, which was basically communism. And then in the South, they followed a more Western ideology and became capitalist. But in 1991, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, all the aid and money that was being poured into North Korea by the Soviets stopped, and it left North Korea without aid. Then throughout the 90s, North Korea got some pretty bad luck, and the country was plagued with flooding, famine, and almost 500,000 people died as a result. In 2011, Kim Jong-il, the notorious leader of North Korea, passed away and was succeeded by his son, Kim Jong-un. Then throughout the 2010s, tensions between the United States and North Korea rose rapidly as North Korea conducted a series of nuclear missile tests and shocked the world with how capable they were in terms of missile range and nuclear capabilities. So that short history of North Korea brings us to where we are today, which is still no further than where we were 50 years ago. You know, North Korea still remains closed for basically anyone in the world. So in short, the only way you can ever visit North Korea is through a guided tour. Now, these guided tours are strictly controlled. They allow you to see a very small portion of North Korea. You know, you're on this tour, you're guarded the entire time. They only show you certain things that they want you to see. And these tours don't protect you from the strict laws that they have in North Korea. So in theory, you could make a mistake and be arrested for something that's, you know, not a crime at home in America or the UK or Australia, but is a weird crime in North Korea. You know, there was the famous case of Otto Warmbier, who was supposedly caught stealing a poster, and he was arrested for years and taken to some sort of concentration camp, and he died when he was taken back to the US. So yeah, these tours, although in theory you could book a tour and go and see parts of North Korea, definitely doesn't leave any room for surf exploration. You know, you can't go to North Korea and just go off your own accord and go and start hunting waves. So could you surf in North Korea? The answer is basically no, you can't. I know there was a company that started taking people surfing in North Korea. I don't know if they're still running. I'll leave the link in the description where you can check it out. But from what I've read and the research that I've done online, you can go to this company and they'll take you on it's sort of a tour that includes surfing rather than a surfing tour. And they can take you to certain beaches where the waves might not necessarily be good, but you could go and surf like a foamy or something. You definitely couldn't take your own boards or anything like that into North Korea. But just looking at the coastline and knowing that the Korean Peninsula does receive swell during the winter, there would definitely be potential in North Korea. Now, obviously, if these waves and setups that I'd looked at on Google Maps weren't in North Korea, I definitely wouldn't be making this video. But the fact that me, you, or anyone can't go there, I just thought it was a fun video to make. Probably some North Korean locals going, fuck, you're blowing up the spots. but I don't think they can watch YouTube, so we're all good. So yeah, there's lots of potential setups, including this sort of right-hand point. I mean, I don't know how good it is. You obviously don't know like the bottom contours of the sea floor there. But the Sea of Japan does get waves in winter, you know, there's enough fetch in there, and looking at Google Maps, it looks like it's relatively deep ocean. There's not much continental shelf. So any swell that did get in there would break and there would be waves. But the fact that none of us are ever gonna surf them just kind of leaves it as this like mysterious like place where in the back of your mind, you're like, would there be a way to get there? But I don't think there is. I thought it was just a fun, albeit pointless video to make. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it interesting. But for now, it's goodbye from me, and I'll see you in the next ep.